What reading means to me? Reading means everything to me. I'm always reading. I always have several books on the go, fiction, non-fiction, poetry, a big pile of books to be read. When I was a child, we didn't have many books in the house. My father was a reader, but we didn't own a lot of books. But around the corner from where we lived, there was a little library. And I used to go there every Wednesday after school. And we were allowed to take out 3 books only at that time. And I used to take out 3 books every week, in fact more than once a week, and read them. And the junior fiction was quite a small section, so I soon read it. All the William books, just William books, all the Enid Blyton books, all the books that were popular at that time. And then I sort of spread myself into the adult fiction. So I started to read more sort of Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes stories, and the Treasure Island type books, Robert Louis Stevenson, and then fairy tales, folk tales, legends. Those really interested me, and there was a whole shelf of those that I read my way through. And then I got into fantasy novels, Alan Garner in particular, who was writing in the 1960s. And so the library introduced me to a whole range of books that we never had at home, that I would never have found in a bookshop, because we didn't go to bookshops. So that was really important to me. And that's where I got the habit of reading, and I just have never lost that habit. And the thing about reading is that it takes you to other places, it takes you to other worlds, it puts you inside other characters, you become other people, you can be anybody. You know, you're born in a certain body at a certain time, but when you read, you can be male, female, animal, alien, you could be anything, good, evil. So you can really change your personality and explore other people's lives and, other worlds, other dimensions. So reading really takes you into other places, and that is probably what I enjoy most about it. I've been a writer of fiction for many years, and my stories have always been for children or young adults. And often they're fantasy stories. So either they're set on another world or in some magical dimension which breaks into our world, or the hero or heroine leaves this world and enters another, or they're ghost stories, or they're a mixture of fantasy and science fiction, which is something I quite enjoy doing. And I've done all sorts of different books for all sorts of different ages. But the book I'd like to talk about now is the most recent set that I've been doing, and that's this one, which is The Clockwork Crow. This is book 1 in the Clockwork Crow series. And I decided to write a novel for children of about 9 to 12 years old, and I wanted it to be set at Christmas. I really had the idea that I wanted a Christmas book with all the Christmassy things, the tree and the snow and everything like that, really seasonal book. And that was my first idea for the book. And then I decided I would like to set it in Wales. I live in Wales, and Wales is very important to me, and I wanted to use some aspect of Welsh legends. And there are stories in Wales about the Tylwyth Teg, or the Fair Family, the fairies, if you like. But they're not sort of small, cute things. They're quite dangerous beings, and if you get on the wrong side of them, they could do you a lot of harm. So I wanted them in the story. I decided that it would be set in the Victorian period, and that was because of my heroine, and her name is Seren Rhys, and she just walked into the story in a way. She just arrived and said, write a story about me. So the story opens with Seren on a railway station late at night. It's very dark, it's freezing cold, and she's all alone. She's like the last passenger on the station. There's nobody else there. And she's waiting for a train. Now, Seren is an orphan. She has no parents. She doesn't know anything about her family. And she's been living in an orphanage for some time. But now, her godfather has written to her and asked her to come and live with him and his wife, Lady Maya. His name is Captain Arthur Jones. His wife is Lady Maya Jones, and their son is Thomas Jones, and they live in a large house out in the country in the middle of Wales. And Seren is travelling there, and she is really excited. She imagines what Christmas is going to be like at Plas y Fran, which is the name of the house. She imagines the huge tree, the presents, the food, the new clothes she'll get, the friends she'll make. She's very much looking forward to meeting Thomas, to make a sort of friend of him. So she's daydreaming, really, about what she's going to find. She's so cold on the station that the station master comes and says, well, you can wait in the waiting room, just this once. And he lets her into the waiting room, the first class waiting room, where there's a fire, and she sits by the fire. She thinks she's alone in the room until somebody coughs. And she looks up and she finds, to her amazement, that there is a man in the room, sitting in a dark corner, a very tall, thin man. And on his lap he's carrying a parcel wrapped in newspaper. And the man is very anxious, he's very nervous. He keeps getting up and looking out of the window and saying to Seren, did you hear that noise? Did you hear that? That's them, they're out there, I know they're out there. And she's a bit worried about him, but she says she doesn't hear anything. So in the end, the man says, look, I've got to go out and have a look. I want you to look after this for me. And he gives her the newspaper parcel. And he says, whatever you do, don't leave it here alone. Whatever happens to me. And he leaves. And Seren is there with the parcel. She doesn't know what to do. And he doesn't come back. She waits for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he doesn't come back. And then after 15 minutes, her train comes in. And she has a decision to make. Does she leave the parcel or does she take it with her? And at first, she just puts it down and gets on the train. But she's really worried about leaving it alone on the table in the waiting room. So at the last minute, she jumps off the train, grabs the parcel, jumps back on the train, and the train roars away into the night. And she's taken the parcel with her. That was the opening chapter of the book. And I wasn't quite sure when I wrote it what was in the parcel, to be honest, because I often do this with stories. I just start them and see what happens. And it was then, shortly after that, that the name of the book popped into my head, which is The Clockwork Crow. So you've probably guessed what's in the parcel, because when she opens it, when she gets to the big house, she opens it, there are the pieces of a bird, a clockwork bird, bits of wing, bits of beak, cogs, wheels, springs, a key to wind it up, and a little note which says, the Clockwork Crow, danger, do not assemble. So Seren gets to the house, and when she gets there, it's nothing like she expected. I'm not going to tell you too much about what she finds, but it's not the nice, lovely house she was expecting, and there's no sign of Thomas or the family. The only people are there are two of the servants, and they're not very polite to her. So you can imagine what she does. She's bored, she's alone, she's fed up. She puts the pieces of the bird together and then winds it up. And that's how the story begins. Characters are really important in the story. The story can be as exciting as you like, but without a real character that you can identify with, it loses a lot. So in the Clockwork Crow trilogy, this being the first book, and the second book is called The Velvet Fox, and the third book is called The Midnight Swan. In this trilogy, really, there are two main characters, and one is Seren and the other is the crow. And I wanted to get their friendship as the main sort of focus of the story. So Seren is a very spirited girl. She's very independent. She's had to look after herself all her life in the orphanage. She knows what she wants. She's a big reader. She's really interested in being educated and learning things. She doesn't just want to be a servant when she grows up, which is what would probably happen to her. She wants to be more than that. So she's very keen on learning and being educated. And she really wants a family. That's the thing she wants most. She wants a house where she can feel that she lives with a mother and father and a brother or sister. Things she's never had. And she does a lot, really, to get these things. And throughout the story, they get into all sorts of scrapes and adventures, and Seren is one of the the ones who really likes to work out the way out of problems. In her reading, she loves reading about Sherlock Holmes, the great detective, and sometimes she imagines herself as Sherlock Holmes and what would he do in this situation, and she sort of takes on his character and pretends to be him. But she's very sensible and sort of common sense and down to earth. The Clockwork Crow, on the other hand, is a completely different person. When she puts the pieces of the crow together and winds him up and meets him, she finds that he is somebody she doesn't really understand at all. He tells her all sorts of stories about who he is. He says he's a prince. He says he's a professor with several degrees. He's always telling her stories about how he came to be a crow. And gradually she realises that none of them are true and that he tells terrible lies all the time. And she doesn't really know what the truth is. He's also extremely vain, even though he's a moth-eaten bird. He's always preening himself and cleaning himself and, saying that he wants to be brushed and washed and so on, as if she's some sort of servant to him. And he's extremely proud, but he's also extremely clever, and he can do magic, which is what she needs. And what I wanted to do with these two characters was play them off against each other. So they are friends, but it takes a long time for them to get to know each other and to be friends. And at first, they really don't like each other very much at all. There are other characters in the book. Thomas, the son of the family who turns up. He's a very nice young boy, very artistic, very sensitive, but also very, very clever. And then there's Denzel, one of the servants, who is a man who knows a lot about the fairy folk and about Welsh legend and myth, and he advises them in all the difficult situations they get into. So those are the four main characters in the books. This is a reading from The Clockwork Crow, and it's chapter 6, The Enchanted Prince. This is the part in the story where Seren has already put the pieces of the Clockwork Crow together, and she's wound him up. And she's found that this is a very sort of cranky, cantankerous, irritated sort of bird who couldn't really speak because he needed some oil. So he sent her downstairs to get some oil for him. And in this part of the story, she's come back upstairs after stealing the oil of cloves from the drawer, and she's decided to put it on him and see what he does. After a lot of rubbing with the oil, the key was shiny. It turned more easily. At once the bird gave a groan and moved its wing feebly. "I'm in agony here. Hurry up, girl, hurry." She dropped spots of oil on its neck, in the feathers of its wings, in its talons. The bird flexed and slid with little scratches against the table. "Oh, yes, that is so good. A bit more there, and yes, just there. At last." It had both its wings spread out now. Before Seren could step back, it flapped them, and with a sudden crazy lurch it was flying, soaring madly round the ceiling, almost crashing into the mirror. Seren ducked. "Hey, be careful!" The crow smacked into the curtains and got tangled. Its voice came out muffled. "Who put these here?" "Let me help." "No." Its head appeared, then its body, and it was off again, zigzagging from the wardrobe to the bed rail, from the dressing table to the window seat. It went so fast and looked so out of control, she was afraid it would smash into the glass. But then it was really looping round and round the room, and making a sort of creaky, triumphant laugh. Seren grinned. She sat cross-legged on the bed and watched. Finally the crow crash-landed on the table, skidded across the polished wood and fell off into a basket of coals by the fire. It swore, climbed out, and walked across the table, leaving sooty footprints. "I needed that," it said. "Are you all right?" The crow looked down its beak at her. "Why shouldn't I be? I'm just out of practice, that's all. So, who are you, and where is this pit of a house?" It was so rude, she thought. She said, "I'm Seren Rhys. This is a house called Pleser. It's in Wales." "Wales? How did I get here?" "I brought you. Well, it was a sort of accident, really. You were in pieces in a newspaper parcel and..." The crow shuddered. "A newspaper parcel? How incredibly humiliating. How dare you wrap me in some dirty old newspaper? I didn't. You just said. No, it wasn't me, it was... The crow held up a wing. Forget it. You're obviously confused. So then, you are a princess? Seren laughed. No. A duchess? The crow tipped its head. A marquise, a contessa, a baroness, at least? None of them. I'm an orphan. I've only just come here, mostly because the family feels sorry for me, I suppose, not that I've met any of them yet. The crow's beak opened in astonishment. It looked devastated. An orphan? This is ridiculous. How can I possibly expect to be unspelled in a place like this? Then, as if it had a sudden idea, it hopped closer and looked hard at her. Of course, you might actually be a princess in disguise. You were probably abandoned in a cradle on the river, or left in the wood by your wicked stepmother. That just happens in stories. Seren knelt up on the bed and inched a bit closer. Are you real? As real as you, the crow snapped. I mean, alive. So do I. Do I look dead? The crow was disgusted. It stared out at the moon with its jewel-bright eyes. This is what always happens. The clockwork runs out, and no one winds me up. I'm sick of it. Whole centuries go by, and I have no idea what's going on. Then I wake up in some rubbish house with some infant child. So, if it wasn't you, who put me in the parcel? A thin man. He was so scared. A thin man? Very tall? Yes. Do you know him? I might. Scared of what? Them. The crow looked thoughtful. Them. That's all he said. He went out and he never came back. And I brought it, I mean you, here, and I put it, I mean you, together. An idea was coming to her from all the fairy stories she'd ever read. Are you really under a spell? The crow nodded. Clever girl. Worked it out all by yourself. Are you a prince? The crow blinked. Then it said, what else? Prince of Siberia, and Trebizond, and the glass Isle of Avalon. She had never heard of any of those places, and she was not sure they even existed, but it wouldn't hurt to get off the bed and bob a curtsy, so she did. The crow seemed pleased. Thank you, it said. So that means you can do things, magic and stuff? It looked smug. A few tricks, a few trifling sorceries. Could you open a locked door? The crow looked at her with scorn. That's child's play. She wanted to race up to the attic at once, but first there was Sunday supper. Look, I have to go back downstairs for a bit. I won't be long, I promise. Will you be all right here? Do you need food or anything? Food! This stupid spell means I can't eat or drink. For 100 years I've dreamed of cheese and chocolate, truffles and toast. It was gazing into the fire with a wistful look, but then it turned its jewel-bright eyes on her. Wait a minute. I haven't given you permission to go anywhere. Seren snorted. I'm not your slave. That's what you think, the crow said darkly. Well, this time I'll allow it, but don't tell anyone about me. As if I would. It flapped to the window and stared out moodily. And be quick. I get bored easily. So for my creative challenge to you, what I would like you to do is to write a story similar to the Clockwork Crow, and it can be the clockwork anything. What I want you to do is have a character who finds the pieces of an animal or a bird or an insect, anything you like, and puts those pieces together very carefully and winds them up with a little key, and the animal or bird comes to life and talks. So it could be a clockwork squirrel or a fox or a hare or a spider or something, a dinosaur, anything you like. Just use your imagination, and when the animal comes to life, give it a real personality and a character. So it can be very shy, or it could be very vain, or it could be very proud, or always making jokes, or afraid to talk. You can have any sort of character you like, and your character, your hero or heroine, must make friends with it and go on an adventure with it. So that's my challenge, the clockwork something.